Hello and welcome to the very first episode of a brand new podcast, View from the Gallagher. I'm your host, Ian Smith, a Newcastle United season ticket holder in the Gallagher end, of course. And each week we'll bring you all the latest news and reaction to matches, as well as looking ahead to upcoming games. But I will not be doing this alone. This week I'm joined by Gordon and Dexter. And Dexter, I'll start with you. You're coming from us from a long way away. Where are you at the moment?
I'm in Newcastle, but the one that's at the other end of the world in Australia. I'm only about 5 kilometers away from Gateshead, believe it or not.
Yeah, thank you for joining us. Obviously, it's really a pleasure to have you on. And I've heard of Newcastle in Australia, but I hadn't realised that you were saying all the suburbs are basically the same names as over here.
Yeah, so look, Newcastle is a huge coal mining area, and in the early days, basically a load of Geordies and Welsh people moved here and kind of built the infrastructure, built the towns and the cities. So we got a Jesmond, Wallsend. There's a Stockton beach. We also have a Cardiff and a Swansea as well. So there's a kind of mix of the two regions there. Cool. And there's quite a lot of Newcastle fans here, and a fair bit of Geordie DNA as well when you actually get to speak to the locals.
Very good. Is there a Newcastle supporters group over there?
There is one that gets together at the Blackbutt Hotel every now and then when we've got games on at a reasonable time, which is we might get, let's say 10 p.m. But yeah, that's only in the winter, right? We've got this really short window, and then the clocks change, and they're all at 2 a.m.
Yeah. And Gordon, how are you? How are you getting on?
Yeah, I'm very good, thank you. I'm coming to you all the way from Essex. I'm down here at in my other son, Andrew. Came down. It's our longest trip we've had for several months because I don't know if you know this, but I did my Achilles tendon.
Well, I was going to ask how your foot is.
Well, I can drive now. I've only been given the sign off a week ago for driving, so we've been able to get in.
It's more better. Importantly, you actually could get to St James's Park at the week.
Absolutely. I missed the last 3 games of the season because I couldn't get the game because I was in a moon boot or an air cast boot, whatever they are. So it's been a really, really hard 15 weeks recovery, but getting there.
You've not been the best patient, to be fair. It's been frustrating.
Very frustrating.
Anyway, right, let's move on. So loads happening with Newcastle, obviously, as always. And I mean, let's start with the transfer window stuff. So loads to come up in the show tonight. We will be reflecting on that 5-1 win over Villa. We're going to be talking about fixture congestion, possibly in the autumn as well. We're also going to be looking later on and exploring our hopes and wishes for the 2023-24 season for Newcastle United. But like I say, let's begin with the transfers. It's fair to say Newcastle fans have been spoilt since the new owners came in. Once again, the club have been very, very busy in the transfer market this summer. Today, the club looked to have secured the loan with an obligation to buy of 18-year-old left-back Lewis Hall from Chelsea. And looking at the reaction from Chelsea fans on social media, it seems that they are not too happy about losing him, which for a squad with fans who follow a team with about 150 players in the squad, I think that says quite a lot. So I don't know what do you think to this signing and obviously the transfer window in general, Dexter?
I've got to be honest, I've only seen Lewis Hall play a few times, but when I have, I think he played against us in the last game of the season, looked really impressive. So other than those couple of games, there's not really a great deal I can go off. But if you look at the track record that we've got, I was a bit dubious about Gordon, and I was completely wrong about that. So, every signing that we've made has made an impact at the club and a positive impact.
Yeah. Apart from maybe Chris Wood.
He made a positive impact.
He made a positive impact.
He did the job that he was brought in to do, right?
He did. I was just being flippant. What do you reckon?
A bit like Dexter. I mean, I don't know a lot about the lad until I saw a few clips today. I hadn't realised he played against us at the end of the season, actually, until today. But the thing I look at is you look at the players we bought under the new owners, and you look at the research that they do, and the bottom line is, if Eddie Howe and his team think these players are good enough for us, then that's good enough for me. I see a lot of debate online about, I would buy this one, I would go for that one, but they don't do the work or the research behind these players. And I just think, our track record so far has been very, very good, hasn't it, in terms of the players we brought in? So
yeah, I mean, you can't argue with
them. I just think it's great,
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, I was thinking, there's a lot of talk about the squad at the moment. I personally think this is the most balanced, complete squad we have ever had, ever. So, and I'd include Keegan's team in that. I'd definitely include Sir Bobby Robson's team in that. Is this transfer window the best transfer window we've ever had, do you think? The only one I could think that came close in terms of excitement for me was the one where we bought Warren Barton, Ginola and Ferdinand in the same window under Keegan. I don't know, can you think of any other summer transfer? I know it wasn't a window back in the 90s, but anything that compares closely to this?
I think that window that you mentioned, and I'm sure you guys felt the same as well. You had Ginola come and say, wow, I've never seen a player like this. Yeah. And then Asprilla came, and within the first 5 minutes, you were like, wow, I've never seen a player like this. If you look at what we've done since they came in, Trippier, we all said, wow, we've never seen a right back like this. Bruno comes in, we're like, wow, we've never seen a midfielder like this, right? Then we've got Isak comes in, first 5 minutes, wow, this kid is a player, right? Then we've got Tonali comes in, first 5 minutes, like, wow, this guy, I've never seen a player like him. We just seem to be building, the level just seems to be getting higher and higher. And anybody that's coming in, they're just raising their standards to the level of these people. Like Tonali made, Joe Linton and Bruno look average players at the weekend, and that's not a slight on them. That was just the guy came in and took things to another level.
Yeah, I agree totally with that. I think it's the fact that every addition to the squad is building the depth and quality of the squad, which is what we need to have. To me, it's been quite interesting listening to the sort of music outside the club and people saying, well, who they bought, then there's no real big world star, and we haven't gone bought Neymar or Messi or something. It's been players who've just improved right from Trippier, like you said, Dexter. He was such a fantastic inspirational buy, and he's been a catalyst for a lot of what's then followed. But what we've got now is what you said, Ian, is this squad is now, Eddie Howe wanted 2 players in every position, and he's near as damn it God, hasn't he, really? And we've got the situation up front where we've got Callum Wilson and we've got Alexander Isak. I mean, and you at any time you could play either one of those as long as they're fit, and you've got a tremendous centre forward, and they bring different things to the team when they're in there. I mean, they're not an identical swap.
Yeah, that's a really good point, because I think I said that to you the other day, actually, when we were at the match. I was like, the beauty with bringing Callum Wilson off the bench is it's not a like-for-like swap. So although they're playing in the forward position, it then gives the opposition a headache, because whatever they're doing to deal with Alexander Isak, they're then having to change because Wilson plays in a different way, and yet you've still got the quality there. Wilson scored a goal. He should have scored a second goal. They both should have had 2 goals at the weekend. And it's just brilliant.
The interesting point on that, I don't know if you've noticed as well, since Isak came back into the team last year and really kind of stepped up and started hitting goals, Wilson hasn't been injured.
Yeah,
that's true. Yeah,
Wilson scored 10, 11 goals, and if you remember when we bought Les Ferdinand, he was always injured at QPR. Came to Newcastle, he was never injured. Went to Spurs, was injured the whole time. So
Do you think that's partly because Eddie Howe's able to manage that time as well, because they're not having to play every single game, every minute of every single game, and that's benefiting them them, both Isaac and it's like Ian said, on Saturday when they took off Gordon and Isaac, and then what Aston Villa were looking at it and thinking, oh bloody hell, here comes Callum Wilson and Harvey Barnes, and by then they were stretched because they were 3-1 down, and we just tore them to bits in the last 20 minutes or so, didn't we? We could have scored more, but I think it's that management of that game time for both of those two main strikers, which I think is going to be pretty crucial over the coming months.
And you can repeat that across the squad, I think. I was thinking during the week after the Villa game, and we will talk about the Villa game in more depth soon. It got me thinking about, God, Harvey Barnes came off the bench and scored and assisted and could have had another assist and all that kind of. I was thinking, Anthony Gordon had a brilliant game. What on earth is Howe going to do with those two? Then it got me thinking, actually, Anthony Gordon can play on the right as well. And I just wonder if there'll come a point in the season where we see Gordon on the right and Barnes on the left, and we actually have both on the pitch at the same time. Because I think from the evidence we've seen so far of both of those players, and I know it's a really small sample size so far, but they're looking both very impressive. And it's that strength in depth we have in the forwards and midfield positions is frightening. Yeah,
I think Anthony Gordon was really, really, really good first half on Saturday. He was, down that side. It was interesting because in last season we were, I wouldn't say relying totally on the right, but it was certainly a lot of our goals and assists came down the right-hand side with Trippier and Miggy. But then on Saturday we had this thing where it was coming down the left with Anthony Gordon, who was, causing their fullback all sorts of problems. And the cross he put in for the first goal, that was an absolute. It was a superb move and then they kept it alive, and he played that 1-2, and then his cross was absolutely superb, and the finish from Tonali was brilliant. So I think it's a nice problem to have, isn't it? That
definitely
have this, depth that we wanted.
So here's a question for you then. So Dexter, I'll put it to you. Obviously, we're pretty happy with how the transfer window's gone in general, but do you still think, are we still one or two players short of where we really truly want to be, do you think?
Let's look at the Villa game, and maybe kind of use this as a segue to talk about that, right? That first 60 minutes, when you're watching live, even at 3-1, I was still a bit concerned.
Yeah.
And that concern is those gaps at the back. And I think, people are probably going to, I'm probably going to get hung by half the fan base on Twitter. But Dan Burn, look, I think Trippier as well, they're being seen as the weak links by other teams. And if you look at when Villa demolished us 3-0, everything came through Trippier and us playing this really high line, and they were just playing in the back. And if you look at, the first, I think it was in the first 9 minutes, Miggy gives the ball away and Diaby's through in, and Anthony Gordon runs like 90 yards across pitch and catches Diaby, right? And stops a certain goal.
Right.
But that was, I think that's where our weak links are. There's been a lot of talk about centre backs, but the reality is, right, if we get a left back, Dan Burn goes back to centre back, which I think is his better position. And look, I'm just fed up with us not playing proper left back. I think it's probably our weakest area, right?
I think
it's just solidity and defenders, in proper positions.
I think it's a really interesting conversation to have because, I love Dan Burn. I think what he's done is fantastic. But like you say, it's almost like you're not allowed to say that it's not quite right. Like, you're not allowed to say he's a square peg in a round hole or anything like that, because we did really well last year. We had joint best defense in the league. We did really well. We got to a cup final. We finished 4th. It was a very, very good season. But there were still some issues at times. And I think just going forward, it's the old saying in football, you've got to keep evolving to stay ahead of other teams. And ultimately, you're right about the Villa game, Dexter, because it was not it was very comfortable in the end, but there was large portions of that game, pretty much the entire first half. In fact, I said to you, Gordon, we need half time. We need half time to come and just get in at half time in the lead, reset, regroup. And that's because we weren't actually defending brilliantly. And when Howe first came in, he built the team. We survived in the Premier League because we defended really well. He improved us to a level where we could not concede loads of goals. Okay? He's now, as he's added more players, we're becoming more attacking. And we're still, obviously, the level you need to defend at to be at the top of the league, to say finishing mid-table, is massively different. And I think it is the next step of evolution in the squad. And I don't think it's a coincidence that we've signed a right back and a left back who are both very, very young, both very highly talented and rated, who could be our fullbacks for the next, say, 5 years at least.
I think the answer is yes. I think they will be, and the other thing they bring is pace. And I sometimes think we get caught a little bit because of the fact that sometimes I don't think we're quick going backwards as we are sometimes attacking. But you're right, Dex, about the Villa game. I've thought about it all week because I watched a lot of other sort of analysis by other channels, and and yes, we played well, but that first half was a lot tighter than it needed to have been. And I think I remember.
I'd say until it got to 3-1, if I'm honest.
Yeah, I mean, we had a conversation halfway through that first half, and I just thought that the players weren't really as attuned to the system because we had Bruno and Tonali in the same midfield, and yes, they're both brilliant footballers. But I just thought Joe Linton wasn't really as imposing himself on that, and that was allowing them to get in behind us, and we weren't as that sort of tightness, and it was allowing them to get at our weaknesses, which was down those flanks, wasn't it? And really, at 2-1, when we went 3-1, I mean, it was an opportunist goal from Isak, wasn't it? But it was quite brilliant. But they nearly scored shortly after that. I mean, Pope makes the save, and the lad really should have scored. The for them and made it, and it would have been 3-2.
Yeah, Matty Cash, wasn't it, the right back?
Yeah. And had you done that, we would have been nervous again, wouldn't we?
Yeah, and Diaby missed a City hit the side netting just before half time. I think they played a lovely ball through, and it went right through Dan Burn and I think it was Anthony Gordon. So we do look kind of weak in those wide areas, I think.
I think there's definitely room to improve. I think just sort of going back to the stats, it was a comfortable win in the end. I'd say the last half an hour we absolutely destroyed them and battered them, and it was really as comfortable as we all felt. But it's that kind of thing, isn't it, where as a fan or as a group of fans, you tend to remember how you finished the game rather than how you started a game. So if you start a game strongly and end poorly, you remember that you were maybe hanging on or not playing well. And I think there's a little bit of that happened with this Villa match, in that we're all we won 5-1. That looks amazing. The last half an hour, we finished the game so strongly. We looked so dangerous. It could have been 7-8-9, whatever. But it kind of, there has been this little bit of, well, actually, although we did actually start the game pretty well as well, to be fair, but it sort of just glossed over a little bit how there were some issues there. And look, it was the first game of the season. We're not at full pelt yet. We can't have asked for much more than we got, to be fair. But it's worth talking about. It is worth talking about that we're not perfect yet.
No. Yeah, I came away from the ground. We were euphoric at the end because we won 5-1, and it was brilliant. And we haven't had a win like that on the opening day for a long time. So it was great. The thing that I take from it, though, and it comes back to what I said about Eddie Howe, and I think they will have reviewed that game, and he will know that, because he actually alluded to it in his comments afterwards, because he was saying, it was a funny score, that game, and I think he knew that some of the things that we've just discussed actually are issues that need to be addressed within the team, and I think he will work on those. And it'll be interesting to see how it all pans out, particularly with these next two matches, because Man City and then Liverpool will be a barometer of what we might expect for ongoing into the season. So I think there are a lot of lessons for us to take from that game. And yes, it was fantastic to win 5-1, and we were joyous at the end, and it was great. But we have to be realistic that it wasn't as easy in the first half, particularly as it might seem.
Yeah, that's fair. Let's talk about the new signings then. Tonali in particular, man of the match performance. Already scored what I would say is going to become an iconic goal. He was just fantastic. Like,
that's a great
you said, Dexter. It is just brilliant. Put that on a t-shirt and I'll buy it.
Yeah.
It's like you were saying, Dexter. You sort of 5 minutes into his debut, you're like, he's just on another level.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I kind of watching the game live. You miss some of the things that he did, and I went and watched the game again, and kind of replayed the whole thing. One of the beauties about Oz is we get access to every single Premier League game. And so, to actually be able to just watch it where you haven't got the pressure of the scoreline and you know what the outcome is. And he was involved in every single goal. Everything that we did, he had some form of involvement in it, whether it was an intercept, and then passing it off to somebody who then played the assist. And it was just unbelievable to see somebody come in. Because I got to be honest, I was a little bit, I thought, oh, this is a really tough game to come in and make your Premier League debut. Villa smashed us. They're gonna, they overran us in midfield. He didn't do that well in the preseason against them, and it was he just bossed it. And as I said earlier, right, he made Joe Linton and Bruno just look average.
Yeah.
What I like about him is that, and I noticed this because, like you, I went back and watched. I mean, I watched the highlights and not so much the full game, but certainly the bits that were highlighted. And I noticed it even in live play, was what he does when he passes the ball quicker than anybody I've ever seen, because he doesn't even think. He's thought about what he's going to do, and when the ball comes to him, he makes the pass. And there was that intricate move, I think, for one of the goals in the second half, where it was his pass, which was first time, and he was surrounded by players from both sides. But he did that time and time again. He's the speed of his pass. And what was really encouraging for me is that a lot of the players he's playing with were onto that wavelength quite quickly, and they were onside because they had made the move. Yeah. So I think we could take a lot of joy from that, and this is the way it's going to be. But the guy was just on a level which it was unbelievable.
It's exciting.
Particularly with Gordon, you did some really beautiful link-up play. There was that second chance that he had. He played this cross-field pass to Gordon that, unfortunately, Gordon didn't control. Right. And I think the reason he didn't control it was just because he was so surprised that it came to him. I mean, it was an unbelievable pass.
Yeah, he had some amazing long-range passes throughout the game. There was some absolutely fantastic stuff. Here's a question, and I know we had a very, very brief conversation about this, Dexter, on Twitter, just mentioning Bruno. Obviously, towards the end of last season, we know Bruno was playing through an injury, and it did affect his performance somewhat, but he was still so good we needed him. I didn't think he was fully at the races against Aston Villa. Are you concerned about that, Dexter?
Look, my view of it is every player that comes to the Premier League has about 12 months before the opposition susses them out and figures out ways to take them out of the game. And my view is that Villa look to nullify his threat, which is probably why Tonali had so much of the ball and got to run the game, right? So I think you might find that Tonali being in the side playing alongside Bruno gives the opposition now a completely different problem to think about and should free him up. But one thing that did concern me a little bit is, when he that first full season that he was here, he was just super sharp. You couldn't get the ball off him. He was super aware. He seems to be getting caught on the ball, unaware that there's somebody coming for him a lot more frequently now. So that's kind of the only thing that I'm a little bit wary of with Bruno.
Do you think that he invites that though? I think that's part of his game in a way. Like he likes that kind of he loves that kind of contact with players as he kind of turns and then makes a pass or whatever.
There was an instance in the game against Villa where he was running and he was 4 or 5 yards ahead of the player, and he's just kind of trotting along, and the player just sprinted up behind him and nicked the ball away. So that that wasn't happening previously, and I think it's that just awareness of what's around him. And look, I think that level of complacency comes in. We talked about Wilson earlier, right? And he came back from the World Cup and he looked finished. And I think Isak having that run and it gave him the kick to go, hey, mate, look, you've got competition now. And I think that psychological element helps players kind of get their hunger and sharpness back as well.
Maybe Tonali would be the catalyst for that then, maybe.
Yeah. I mean, it's what a problem to be talking about.
Oh, it's crazy. I mean, the thing is, Bruno's kind of...
problems up now, right?
Yeah. He's still quality. the level of player we have. Well, let's move on then. So, obviously, the reality of Champions League football at St James's Park is getting ever closer. I'm absolutely buzzing and excited about it already. I've started to think about it. And this week, it was confirmed that Newcastle are going to be in pot 4 of the Champions League draw. And it got me thinking, who exactly will Newcastle be playing following the 6 Champions League fixtures this season? I actually made a little video about it on this channel earlier in the week. And how might that impact our season? So I'll just put the fixtures up so you can see them. So obviously we've got 6 Champions League games before Christmas, and they're the matches that follow the game. So we've got Sheffield, well, basically 4 away games and then 2 at home. So we've got Sheffield United away following. These are all following Champions League matches. So Sheffield United away, West Ham away, Wolves away, Bournemouth away. And then we've got Man United at home and Fulham at home. What are your thoughts on how we sort of cope with this, Gordon? What do you reckon?
Well, I mean, I texted you after you posted your video, which I thought was this idea was really good, and I think it's well worth looking at the actual realities of what the fixtures. And once you get the teams that we're playing in there, then it'll make even more sense. But I also think we need to be wary of the games before the Champions League as well. So, for example, we play Brentford on Sunday the 17th of September, and it's a 4:30 kickoff. Now, technically, we could be playing 48 hours later a Champions League game, and that could be an away game. We don't know. Clearly, 3 of those Champions League games will be at St James's, and 3 will be on our travels, and it'll depend on sometimes the extent of the travelling. So this is what we want, and what we're really excited about, and of course we are, and it's going to be great. But I think it just needs to be a little bit thinking about the rotation of the squad. And we people last season, Eddie Howe played the same team as often as he possibly could. There's no way he's going to be doing that in this coming 3 months, because the fixtures will not allow him to do that. He cannot have players playing 3 games a week.
Yeah,
some of them will.
The other factor to this is there's also the League Cup to consider. There's actually 3 rounds of the League Cup before Christmas as well. So we're definitely obviously going to be in round 3, which is the week beginning the 25th of September, which is so the week after we play Sheffield United away. So basically we'll have a Champions League game, Sheffield United away, then a League Cup game. And then so that kind of comes thick and fast. If we then get through, there's another League Cup game at the end of October, and then the quarterfinals are in December. So that's potentially 9 extra matches on top of Premier League games, Dexter. What do you think? How do you think this is going to pan out for us? I know we've talked about the squad a bit. Do you actually think there is enough depth in the squad currently to do well in all 3 competitions?
Well, the reality is, right, we're all only allowed 25 players. Is that right in each squad?
Yeah.
So everybody's got the same challenge. I think the really smart thing that they've done with preseason and the recruitment policy is they're buying young players, and also they blooded some. Like I don't know about you guys, right? But 2 years ago we were, where's the academy? Where's the youngsters coming through? And now we got Lewis Smiley, we got Elliot Anderson. The kid, was it Murphy that plays at centre back?
Yeah.
They look absolutely like they are ready to walk into that first team and start to make an impact. So I'm actually really confident, right? I don't care what happens this season. I don't care whether we finish 8th, 10th. Yeah, I really don't care. I think the last 2 seasons have been way beyond expectations. I was super dubious about the ownership. They've completely won me around. I thought Howe was the right appointment, and then I got a bit shaky after the Cambridge defeat, and was wondering whether he was the right person.
You weren't the only one,
right? Yeah. Dan Ashworth is absolutely the right person, and I've got complete belief that everything that they are doing is taking us to the next level. Now, whether we get the results this season or not, for me, I'm kind of quite happy to put this as that kind of 95 season where we finished 6th and we kind of sold Andy Cole and started to rebuild and built the Woods finishing 2nd. So I think the reality is this is a problem that if we want to be successful, you have to find solutions to it, and I'm confident that the club's doing the right thing and has the right strategy to deal with it.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And I think the one thing with whatever Eddie Howe and this club are doing, I have a great faith in what they're doing because of the way they approach it, the meticulous planning, and I think we can take it for the recruitment of these younger players is no sort of sudden thing that they're doing. This is a plan to bring in quality players who are outside the 25 and what they can rotate. I think the other thing, I'm just looking at those fixtures here, and that West Ham game is now on Sunday the 8th, because the other thing, West Ham are actually in the conference. They're not the conference, the Europa League, because they won the conference. So they're in some of these teams who are our rivals for position in the league are going to be playing this Thursday, Sunday schedule, which I think is always a much tougher one than the Champions League. But like you, I just think this is what we want. This is we've dreamt about being in the Champions League, and we've done it far quicker than anybody anticipated. And I think the planning behind the scenes is we're going to put us in as good a place as possible to be able to cope with it. The one thing that we don't know, and this is a great hope, is that we were very fortunate with injuries last season. And I keep hearing about other clubs with getting players injured, and I just hope that we don't have a run on an injury.
Well, even Man City are stressing, aren't they? They've picked up 2 or 3 big injuries to big players, so it can happen. It can happen to anyone. I think, I totally take both of your points really, and it's hard, I think, to accept that this season we've been on an upward trajectory for pretty much 2 years now since the new owners arrived. Certainly 18 months we've been on an upward trajectory ever since we won that game at Leeds, just before the international break when we were in the relegation zone. Everything's gone well since then, but it's hard, isn't it? Even as a fan, it's like we all say, oh, we just want a team that tries. Well, the reality is 2 years down the line, there is expectation there now. And as a fan, it's hard. I think you've got a great mindset, Dexter, to think, actually, if this season's a bit of a dip, that's all right. I'm sat here thinking, bloody hell, I just want us to be in the Champions League again. And I actually think our only aim this season, personally, should be to try and re-qualify for the Champions League, because if we do that, we'll have cemented our place there. But look, we might finish 5th, 6th, 7th, whatever. We don't know what's going to happen yet. And if we do, it's actually not the end of the world, because the foundation blocks are there still. The whole thing's not just going to fall apart and disappear just because we don't necessarily get in the top 4 this season again. But as a fan, it's hard.
I think I've thought about this a lot, and I take Dexter's point about where we finished really doesn't matter. Personally, I think it does. And I think it matters to our owners. I mean, they want to be mixing it with the best. We have hit that thing of being with the best by qualifying in 4th place for the Champions League. So we now are up there to be shot at. And I think what they're doing, the club, are giving Eddie Howe and his coaching team every possible tool to be able to cope with the fixtures, to be able to cope. And I think ultimately, and then somebody else said this on another video, but we are a good team. And let's make no bones about it. We are a good team. And yes, there were the slight flaws against Villa, but nonetheless, we have a lot of intensity. The way we go about games it puts us in. And if I look at the competition, the 2 teams you could argue who maybe are in a similar position to us last season, in that they're not in Europe, are Chelsea and Spurs. Now, I'm not convinced Spurs under their new manager will actually make the same impact as what we did last season. I look at Liverpool, and Liverpool are always going to be dangerous, but I just look at their recruitment this summer, and I just think it smacks a little bit of I'm not saying it's panicking, but it certainly seems to be a little bit. Yeah.
Well, it is when they've missed out on 2 public targets so publicly, and then there is a little bit of panic in that club. I think.
Yeah, I feel like talking to Gabby up on the horn, asking if Casado went to Chelsea for 30 grand a week.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so, the pull of London. Yeah.
So the whole thing, I think it's going to be interesting, and I think we're in a position where I'm not saying we will win the Premier League, but I think we should be aiming to certainly be in the top 5, and I think that's what the club will want to achieve. And I think Eddie Howe will want to achieve that.
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, we know that internally in the club, that's the aim. The aim for the owners and the manager and the players is to re-qualify for the Champions League. There's no doubt about that. They'll not say it, but that is absolutely what they're aiming for this season. There's no doubt in my mind that that's the case.
Yeah. I think they don't say it, but they've got it in that video. That's what we want to do, isn't it? So that there is an element of public awareness from the behind the scenes stuff. But sorry, Dexter, I don't interrupt you.
On that Liverpool point, I think one of the big advantages that we've got, and you kind of touched on this. If you look at the Brighton game, the Brentford game where we won 5-1, the Villa game, I think we're going to win a lot of games in the last 10 minutes or injury time because we are just relentless. And I think that's one of the reasons why we've been signing young kids, right? And Dan Burn and Trippier, they're going to run out of juice pretty soon, right? Playing the way that we're playing. And I think that the other aspect that we've got is a psychological aspect. So part of my business is executive coaching. And the stuff that Eddie Howe does is absolutely top draw, 101 business performance, that he's bringing to the club. Now, if you look at from a leadership perspective, on the flip side, Jurgen Klopp, right? He is giving his players every time he's in a press conference, every excuse not to perform and not to win. Eddie Howe on the flip side is giving his players, he's not putting pressure on them, but he's saying to them, and I remember reading Sir Alex Ferguson's autobiography, and one of the things that he would do every season is, the culture of Manchester United was we win every game. right? We expect to win every game.
Mhm.
If you watch a press conference last night, Eddie Howe says, we expect to win every game. Not saying we're going to win, but we expect to win every game.
Yeah.
And I think this is if you want to talk about the secret sauce, I think that's what all the players are buying into. And I wonder, I wonder if Klopp's even going to be in a job at Christmas. I think he might quit, right? Because you've seen with, these two people who've turned him down, Casado and Lavia, where maybe he's lost his mystique, and he's getting more and more vocal, and he's having digs at us because he can see that, hey, he's got some serious competition now.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting, that point about Klopp. There's quite a few people I've seen saying similar. It feels like it might be coming to the end of the road there for him. Anyway, let's move on then. So obviously this season is only one game old. So we've got pretty much the whole season ahead of us. And today we thought we'd take a look at some of our wishes for this season. So things that we want to see happen or we hope might happen. I don't know, our biggest or perhaps daftest wishes for Newcastle United this season. They might be serious, they might be funny, they might be daft or peculiar or downright bizarre. Whatever it is, we'll do a round robin. We'll do a few each. We'll see what we come up with. We're obviously live on YouTube as well. So if anyone on YouTube in the chat wants to chip in on this one for a wish for the season, then that'd be great. Who wants to kick it off? Dexter, you ready? Have you got one?
Yeah, I have actually. So mine is that Miggy is given an ultimatum that he has to score or cross with his right foot or he's getting sold.
That is so funny because I mean, there was it's every game obviously, but I remember turning to you, Dad, at the weekend, and I can't remember exactly what happened, but there was literally something where I think he was near the byline or the touch line, and he, rather than touch it with his right foot, he literally did it. He came back on his left foot, and I said he just will not touch it with his right foot, will he? Like, he just won't do that. So I think that's a great one.
Yeah, it's brilliant.
Can we see Miggy touch the ball with his right foot this season?
I mean, he scored with his knob against Man City last year. Surely he can do something with his right foot. Right?
You'd hope so. I've never seen. I mean, in all seriousness about Miggy though, like, we all love him for his effort and his enthusiasm and everything. But like, how can a player playing at the top level like he is be so one-footed? It's sort of.
I can't work out at all. Any professional footballer, because it's just about, even if you are so naturally left-footed, you can still practice with your other foot.
It's literally his job is to kick the ball. Like, why has he not spent hours and hours just practicing? That's what I did as a kid. I literally was in the back garden kicking the ball with my left foot to the point where I was actually pretty decent with it.
Yeah.
How is that not happening?
Why is that no coaches have got a hold of that with them over the years?
Very weird.
I mean, but
have you seen the movie Zoolander?
Say that again, sorry, Dexter.
In the movie Zoolander?
No.
Not for a long time.
Yeah, it just reminds me of a scene in there where he can't turn left on the runway, and he starts moaning and says, "I'm not an ambi-turner."
Ambi-turner, love it. Right, I'll go next then. So we were just talking about Klopp a minute ago, and this comment's also just popped up from Mark. So I'll say this one now. My wish this season for Newcastle is that we don't lose to Liverpool this season and that we beat them at least once, because I just feel like we really owe them a game where we beat them. I just really feel like out of all the clubs in the league, I just want us to beat Liverpool just once. I'd be happy with that and draw the other game, not lose to them this season. That'd be really good. I think that'd be brilliant.
Well, one of mine I've written down is to beat Liverpool next week. But then what I've also put is we play them on the last game of the year, so it's just before New Year. And I would like us to do is to score the winning goal in the 110th minute of the game at Anfield, and do what they have done to us time and time again. Going back, obviously, to the 4-3 game which we were at, weren't we? We were,
unfortunately, yes.
and it still sickens me when I see that goal replayed. But I just want to see that all of Liverpool just crying because we're beating them in the last minute. The odd thing we didn't say before, but I think a lot of this, you talked about our fitness levels and our young players coming in late on in games. I think a lot of this additional time that is added on will actually benefit us more than it'll benefit a lot of other clubs.
Because we're so intense.
Because
we play with high intensity right until the end. I agree with that. I think we'll score tons of goals this season. And like Dexter was saying earlier, we'll score a lot of them in the last 10, 15 minutes of matches, like we did against Villa.
Yeah. Well, on the subject of goals, what I've said is I want to see Callum Wilson and Alexander Isak score a hat-trick.
That's one of mine.
I just want us to have players who score hat-tricks, but I'd love to be those two. I'd love them both to get a hat-trick because they both deserve to have a hat-trick.
Who do you think will score a hat-trick first out of those two?
On any given day, you could...
Well,
I don't care, really.
50-50 choice. Come on.
I'm going to go Wilson because I think he's going to get brought on as teams are tiring and we're creating a lot of chances.
But then Alexander Isak on Saturday should have scored a hat-trick.
Oh, he should have had a hat-trick.
He should have had a hat-trick. You're right. He should have had a hat-trick.
So I'll sit on the fence. I just don't care. As long as they both score a hat-trick at some stage, I'll be happy.
Fantastic. Dexter, give us another one.
Gordon's kind of took my Newcastle one, so I've got a one that's not Newcastle.
It's fine. It's fine.
I want to see Neville and Carragher accept a lucrative offer as pundits for the Saudi League. And every game that they commentate, especially when Liverpool's playing Newcastle, they have to brown nose. And maybe throw Jim Beglin in there as well, and he has to commentate on that game.
Jim Beglin's name is Mud.
Pundits and media people kind of mouthing off, and what'll happen. They'll get dangled the carrot in front of them, and all of a sudden, they'll be the biggest advocates for Saudi. Especially Gary Neville, the human rights activist. It'll be.
I love it. I love you thinking.
The new Andy Gray and Richard Keys competing with us two over there.
Brilliant.
I love that. I'll just quickly read a couple of that have come in on the comments on YouTube. So, Agent Tech Streams, we've got top 5 for me and to beat City, give Champions League a good try. All ones that I think we could probably agree with. Alan Thompson says a trophy, simple. Chris would get some credit as he's just got the winner for Forest tonight. I didn't know that. Fair play. We actually mentioned Chris Wood earlier on in the podcast, and I got told off. Keith says Wilson and Isak both to score a hat-trick for Newcastle in a 6-0 win against Sunderland in the FA Cup. And Keith, that leads me to one of my wishes, right? One of my wishes is I would absolutely love to draw Sunderland in the FA Cup this year or next year so that we can put this stupid, it's been so many years since you beat us nonsense to bed. Like, the only reason we haven't absolutely hammered them in the last decade or however long it's been now, I don't even know how long it's been, is because we haven't played in the same league as them because they've been so crap. That's the only reason why that record still exists. And I would imagine if we just drew them in the third round of the FA Cup, St James's Park or Stadium Light, whatever, it wouldn't matter. We'd absolutely annihilate them, and I'd love to see it.
All I'm thinking is we do pretty crap in the FA Cup against crap teams.
Come on, have confidence. Could you imagine? Imagine if we drew them and lost.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I don't know. What do you reckon? Would you fancy taking them on in the cup? I mean,
I'd sooner not, because it just gives them an excuse to bring out all the nonsense, and I'd just keep them where they are.
But what I'm saying is, like, just one match where we hammer them and then never play them again, like, just so that they can't keep harping on about, you haven't beaten us for this, like, because we will have done, and it'll have been the last time they've ever been beaten.
Yeah.
it would
It's
just be,
yes, since we played
We're
them.
in the Champions League, right? Like, who cares?
I know.
Yeah.
I actually hate derby matches, and if we never played them again, I'm not bothered. But it would just be nice just to turn them over once.
The best way to look at it, right, is like we just need to wipe out the Ashley era, right? Like just like erase it from our memories, right? Like let's just leave the trauma behind, forget it never happened, and just enjoy what we've got right now.
Yeah, we need to. It's like we need the Men in Black treatment. Just erase it from our memories.
Exactly. Yeah.
I would like to see when Liverpool play Arsenal or Arsenal play Liverpool, that Arteta and Klopp get into fisticuffs at the side because they're wind-up merchants in their own right, and then they subsequently get banned from the touchline for 12 matches each. I think that would be fitting punishment for all the antics of the last 12 months or so.
Yeah.
Because Klopp's comment the other day about it affecting this technical area.
Yeah, he's got a nerve, hasn't he? He got banned for abusing the fourth official and pulling his hamstring.
He pulled his hamstring, didn't he?
Yeah, that was my moment of the season. That season.
It was funny, like
I don't even think he pulled it right. I think he just knew what he'd done and thought, "Oh no, how am I going to get out of this? I'll pretend I've pulled my hamstring."
Funny. Have you got any more, Dexter?
I haven't actually. Okay. I haven't. So they were the three that I put.
Fair enough. I've got two more. Have you got any more, Dad?
I've just got basically I would like us to get more points than we did last season. This is sort of quite serious. We got 71 points. I'd like to see us aim for 80 points, which I think we've never done before in the Premier League. Because I think when we finished second, we were 78 points. So if we could, outdo even the Keegan team, that would be amazing.
Yeah, well, we scored more than the Keegan team, didn't we?
Yeah, and we scored 80 goals. We scored 68 league goals last season. I would like to see us hit 80. So 80 points, 80 goals. And I think if we do that, we'll not be far away from...
I think if we do that, we'll be in the Champions League again, to be honest. Yeah,
exactly.
Okay, so this is... These are ones that may make me sound a little bit old, okay? So one of my wishes is that the PA system at Newcastle is turned down at some point, because every time I go to St James's Park, it seems to get ratcheted up by an extra 100 decibels every single time. Mm-hmm. It's just ridiculously loud. And on a more serious point, can we just let the atmosphere at the end of the game be natural rather than blare music out right at the end of it? Because that seriously does annoy me. That we can't just, like, the music is on instantly once the whistle's gone, and that I find that irritating. And the other one,
on that one, I really agree with you on that one at the end of the game. Just let the roar of the crowd and let us have the celebration instead of playing music. Yeah.
Jeez, lads, you want to try getting up at 2 a.m. on a Sunday morning or 3 a.m. on a Monday morning to watch the
game? Listen, you don't know what it's like at the moment in that ground. Just wait till you come and visit.
Plugs in, eh? Take some of your defenders and put them in, and you can enjoy that.
Big pair of those ones, yeah. And then my last wish for the season is this. When did every chant that we sing become a full song with verses and choruses? Like, I don't know about you, maybe it's an age thing, but it's very, like, a lot of them are just, I can't grasp them. Like, they're too complicated. They're too fast. People sing them too fast for a start. Like, that's a trend that's happened over the last 10, 15 years that I don't get. But, like, they're always like a full chorus and verse effort. Like, what's wrong with just the simple kind of like, United, like, that's gone. And now it's like we've got full parodies of songs being sang as chants. And it's like, some of them are good, but a lot of them aren't. And some of them are really hard to pick up the words unless you're singing them all the time.
Do you know, on that United thing, if you've ever watched, and I think I mentioned this to you, Ian, but the FA Cup semi-final in '74 against Burnley at Hillsborough. If you ever just watched the YouTube, and it's Brian more commentating, and it's. But you listen to us after we score, and it is just that chant of United, and it is absolutely so loud. It is amazing, and I was part of it. I mean, I was in amongst it that day, and it just comes across so unbelievably, fantastically simple, and yet loud and to the point. And I just love it, and I think you're right. Some of these modern chants are actually too complex.
Like, I will give people credit.
Yeah, you mentioned that. I don't think I've ever heard Toonami chant when I've been watching on the TV.
It's really rare these days.
Yeah.
Honestly, it is really rare. And like, to be fair, some of the chants are quite clever and quite funny, but they're not like really catchy for a crowd to get on. Like, if you want mass participation at St. James's Park with chanting, which some people are desperate for, we all want a great atmosphere. Singing like a full verse of a song is, in my opinion, is not the way to go about that, because it just excludes people who can't pick up on the words.
Yeah, Magic Hat song. I don't even know what the tune is.
Which one?
The Bruno's Magic Hat song. I don't even know what the tune is, let alone the words.
Oh, is that from like? Yeah, I'm trying to think what tune it is. Is it My Old Man's Adjustment? No, no. I don't know. Somebody will tell. Somebody will tell me.
Well, then it's clearly not a good chant, right?
No.
This is my point, Dexter. This is my point. Like, if you can't learn it after one time hearing it.
Do you know one of the simplest ones we've had in the last decade, and it was really, really good, and it was really powerful, was Demba Ba's one about so many goals since Ramadan, because every time he scored, it kept notching up that he'd scored so many, and it was just that. It was, and it was brilliant.
I think sometimes the simplest ones are genuinely the best ones. I think that's kind of my point here. Listen, really, really good. Really enjoyed this chat tonight. We're going to just finish with looking ahead to tomorrow, Man City away. As I mentioned earlier, they have got some big issues. De Bruyne is out for 3 or 4 months. One of their, I can't remember who it was now, but one of their defenders is out as well. How are we feeling about going to Man City? Bearing in mind, we've never, ever won a Premier League game at the Etihad. How are you feeling about the game tomorrow, Dexter?
Confident, and I'm going to predict a Desmond 2-2. I think we'll go and we'll really give him a game. And I think it's just going to be like a heavyweight boxing match, end to end, really interesting game. Lots of battles going on around the pitch. I think it'll be probably similar to the game at St. James's last season as well. And I think we'll give them a scare.
Gordon?
Yeah, I mean, I'm of similar opinion, really. I think I predicted 1-1. I think what I think we are at a point now is that we will go toe to toe with them, and we will give them a game. And it might end up that we lose, but I honestly feel that we can get something from this game tomorrow. Similar, like we say, to the game last season at St. James early on in the season. I think in many ways it's not a bad time to be playing. And I think we go there with confidence and we'll be prepared. But if we can get a draw, I think that would represent a good result for us.
Yeah, I think there's not many times. There's probably never been any time, if I'm being honest, since Man City have moved to the Etihad. I don't think I've ever been that confident of us going there and getting a positive result. I think our record is we've played 20. I can't remember what the stats were now, but we've only drawn one, and we've drawn twice, I think, at the Etihad in the Premier League, and we won in the League Cup once, something like that. That's our record. This feels a little bit different to me, if I'm honest, for a few reasons. One, Man City, for all their incredibleness, if that's a word, start seasons slowly. It takes them a bit of time to gel and play fluently. I'm not saying they're a bad team, because clearly they're not. They've got some serious injuries. Their defence, in particular, can be got at. And I know you're both predicting a draw. I'm reluctant to say it, but I genuinely think we can go there and win. I really have this weird feeling that we can actually go and win. And maybe that'll sound ridiculous come Sunday morning because we'll have been hammered 3 or 4-0. But I just feel like we can do it. I really do believe that.
So the lads at the Toon Under pod had a Man City fan on as their preview podcast yesterday, and he's predicted a draw as well. And look, he's kind of pretty scared after what he's seen at Villa. But what he did share is that Man City only had 2 preseason games, and he doesn't think that they're fit enough or they're anywhere near to the fitness levels they need to be. So if you think of how relentless and ruthless we are in the last 30 minutes of a game, I think it could be the opposite of what we've seen at St. James's last year, where we went out all guns blazing and then kind of tailed off at the end, and Man City came back. I think we could potentially win it, if they start to tire.
Interesting.
It's going to be interesting. Yeah, it's going to be really interesting. So anyway, thank you so much. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Thank you, Gordon. Thank you, Dexter, for joining us. I hope you have a good day in Australia while we all go to bed.
And 21 degrees, sunshine, and we're still in winter.
Brilliant. We're not jealous at all.
Not jealous at all, no.
Just a couple of things to say just before I end the podcast. Firstly, you can subscribe to this podcast via Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts from. It will be available. This one will be going up as soon as I can put it up. So search for it. It's called View from the Gallagher. And we're going to be doing this every single week. So go and look for that. And also, please go and look up my Substack. So I write an article every week about Newcastle United. It's sent to your email address for free every Wednesday morning. The link is in the description below. Go and check that out. I'd be very grateful if you took the time to do that and read my articles. And all I can say is I'm just really looking forward to talking and writing about Newcastle for the rest of this season. It's going to be a really good season, I think, and we're not going to be short of stuff to talk about. So thank you very much. So Gordon, Dexter, thank you very much, and enjoy the Man City game.
Yeah.
Cheers, lads.
Cheers, Dexter. Take care.